But man, it's great to catch up with you in living color. I love the new album, so thank you for taking a minute out.
Oh, thank you for the kind words and for having me on the show again. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the album. What was kind of the idea going into Small Things? What was kind of following up the previous release, getting into a new year? Just what was kind of the idea of this album?
Um, to be perfectly honest, I think I know some artists have like a full, very, calculated concept behind their records. Um, and for me, I just kind of felt that it was time to make a new record. Like my old record at this point came out in 2021. We recorded it in 2020. And I just felt like I'd changed a lot as a player. The music I was writing had changed a lot. And I was now playing with different people. Um, and then I had this band, the, the quintet that's on most of the record, that I'd been playing with for about a year when I recorded this. And as soon as I started playing with them, I knew it just felt like it was time to make a different collection of music, something that made a new statement about my music currently. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think probably in light of living through that pandemic and the album was emblematic of that time. So much changed. I mean, I
Right.
see pictures that come up now from 2020 or before that, and I almost feel like we aged like presidents. There was so much, emotional and psychological aging that we all went through. So to live through that time, I mean, it was kind of a Bob Dylan time period because it wasn't just the fact that we had this pandemic. I mean, we had everything that started with George Floyd up in Minneapolis, and then everything that
Right.
kind of bled out into levels of class war and election stuff and all of that. So there was
Right.
probably just a plethora of things for artists to dig their teeth into.
Yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, there was a lot of stuff to process. And I know one of the ways I process things is through music. I think that's a big part of the reason that I play. Um, so I'm sure that that comes out in a lot of different artist development since COVID and now.
Yeah. So why the name Small Things? What was the name behind? What was the meaning?
So that's the title track off the record. I wrote this song, and typically when I compose music, I know some people will come up with a concept and then try to write something that matches it. I've never been successful in that. I usually write something and then afterwards I'm like, okay, this is what it sounds like. So Sophia's Waltz, I wrote that song and it sounded loving and joyful, and it really captured the way that I felt about my fiance Sophia, and the way that it almost captured her as a person to me. So I wrote this song, Small Things, and I had it sitting in the can for, well, not recorded, but I had it sitting around like the sheet music for like 4 months. And it sort of had this longing sound to it. And I couldn't figure out a title. It's like you can write a tune in 15 minutes and you try to name it and it takes like a year. Um, so I eventually just played it for my friend, Gabriel Schillinger-Hyman, who's a great pianist in New York. And I said, what would you call this tune, man? And he just listened to it for 2 seconds and he goes, Small Things, all lowercase. And that's the record.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So let me ask you this. You've made it to a mecca in New York that a lot of musicians want to go to for many very
Right.
valid reasons. How much of living in that environment, being in the actual soup of jazz in the world, has influenced the way that you found your voice and your sound and what you're doing now, not only in recordings, but live music?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I think it's made a huge impact on me. I think even in the first year when I came back to visit my parents, my dad, who also plays guitar, is like, wow, you're really playing differently now. And I think a big part of the reason for that is anywhere you go, there's a different culture around surrounding music. And it's hard to put it into words, but I just being inspired by so many amazing peers and mentors and musicians when I go out to see music is just it's kind of kept a fire in me um, going that has made a big impact on myself as a player, I think.
One of the reasons why I asked that is during the pandemic, there was an author here in Kansas City. Her name is Carolyn Glenn Brewer, and she wrote a book on Pat Metheny's early years, like when he was in high school and before he went. I believe he went to maybe Berkeley and then he went to Miami and eventually New York. But it seemed like once he got out of his native surroundings, it's like he got around all of these other big fish and just things just
Mhm.
started going. Because he's arguably one of the biggest players in jazz ever. And he comes from here. And there's a lot of cats that are still here that remember those years of going to the Metheny house. Because I moved to the town that he's from, Lee Summit, right as the pandemic began. And I think about that sometimes, like how he was in this small town environment. And once he got into this big metropolis and got into all of these different environments, it's just like things evolved and cultivated in a very profound way.
Right. Coming from Minnesota, I think the biggest culture shock for me was going to Miami. I studied there for my undergrad, and it just all. I mean, I love Minnesota. I love the music scene, um, but relatively speaking, it's like maybe a smaller scene than some other bigger cities. So all of a sudden, I was in for the first time. Uh, a school where it's just so many players and there's so much music around and there's so many resources. And it just felt like you just have so much room to grow because you're getting inspiration from so many different places.
Yeah. So I'm curious, the album comes out on January 24th. What do you do on that day? What do you do on release day? Is it kind of like this magnanimous moment? You open the box up, all the discs are in there, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
the Norman Rockwell moment. How do you commemorate a day like that?
Um, well, I think the first thing I'm going to be doing is promoting it,
Right.
spending a lot of time trying to post about it. And I wanted to get the release show to be on that day,
Yeah.
but New Blue, which is the first venue that I played at with the core quintet for the record. They didn't have a date on that day, so we're doing our release show on Friday, February 7th.
Okay.
So I think on that day I'm going to be promoting it and giving out records to friends. I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be visiting my family because I was during the holidays this year, I was playing with this singer named Richie Nuz, and we had this like holiday residency in Thailand. So I won't be around my musician friends, but I think I'll do something at home with family to celebrate it. Probably listen to it or something.
Yeah, for sure. Have a listening party. Um, there's a place here in town that has vinyl nights, and people bring in vinyl, and they just sit around and people hand it, and it's a little bar called Fringe, and I always thought that was
Oh,
kind of a,
cool.
you know what I'm saying? Just like
Yeah.
that warm analog glow, people bring in their stuff. It would be kind of cool if a musician popped in and no one knew it was their opening day, and they were like, "Hey, can you play Small Things?" And they just
Oh, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Just kind of do one of those
Yeah.
little pop-up things would be cool,
That's a really cool idea.
you know? So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. When you finally got to New York, it again, as I said before, it's this dream location. Was there a stage that you finally dreamed of playing on, you played on it, and you were like, wow, I can't believe this is happening?
Um, I have yet to play. So I think one of the stages that I'd love to play on, I'd love to play at Smalls sometime. And I've done the session, but I've never played there as one of the acts. So that will hopefully be a dream come true at some point. But so far, I've played at oh yeah, I did some events for Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I played in their atrium on their atrium stage one time, and that was pretty crazy. Bill Charlap was playing in Dizzy's in the other room, and he came over and he was like, "Hey guys, I just want you to know that I really enjoyed the music. Sounds really good." And I didn't recognize him at first, and then the bassist Raul Reyes was like, "Man, that's Bill Charlap." And that was a very like amazing moment for me, you know.
Yeah. But
Um,
Bill's such a cool cat, though. Like he's one of those really kind of he reminds me of one of those like wise saints, blue collar kind of dudes that's just how he flows, and I could totally see that, you know,
yeah,
being the case. Um,
yeah, very uplifting of like younger musicians.
but that's kind of the vibe of the jazz community. I mean, the elders always look out for the youngers and they always want
Yeah,
to keep that flame going. And there's always this kind of, and that's been kind of a bedrock of the Kansas City scene. There's a real
yeah,
community, a real lifting everybody up. And I would just imagine with the elders seeing a young player, they would probably want to put a good word in because Bill's probably one of the biggest voices in the music,
yeah, 100%.
you know. So at the end of the day, what do you ultimately want the listener to get from this album?
What I really strive to do as a musician is if I can just reach people, reach anyone on an emotional level. You know, if there's somebody who's like having a good day or a bad day and they want some music to um, help them through something, and I can be one of the artists that provides that, that to me is the ultimate goal. So I hope that at least one of the songs on the record resonates with somebody, hopefully more than just one person on
Yeah.
that level.
So, as a transplant into New York, being a younger player, we're in a brand new year. What is the strength of the jazz community? Are you feeling good post-pandemic, getting into a new year in the biggest city on the planet playing jazz? How is the scene? How are you feeling about jazz in America in 2025?
Wow, that's a huge question.
I
I'll
didn't
do
mean to
my
wrap too much in there, but
no, no, it's great. Um, I mean, there's a lot of amazing stuff going on. So I would say I feel great about it. We're still seeing um, recovery, I think, from the results of COVID. You know, we lost so many great venues. Um, Most recently, when I got, or well, probably not most recently, but one of the recent venues that we lost was the 55 bar, and I never made it out there. And I was here while it still existed, and I kick myself every time I remember that. It's, but we're seeing new venues pop up. There's a really cool venue called NYC Close Up that just opened its doors recently, and they're curating some really amazing music. Um, yeah, I feel great about the scene. There's a lot of amazing players, a lot of great things going on, and the energy, I think, in general in the community is high.
it's a resilient art. You know, what the thing that was so weird about the pandemic was that Disney movie Soul, I think that was the name of it that came out,
Mhm.
that John Batiste did the soundtrack for.
Right,
It comes out, it's Disney, it's the largest platform in the world. It's celebrating jazz. Go see it live. And it was 2020 and no one could get out to see live music.
right,
But the thing is that jazz has always been an art form because it's not a lucrative art form in terms of money for the
right,
musicians, but it's
right.
always survived. It's always evolved. It's always been a
Mhm.
part of a newer evolved sound like you're ushering in, that you're taking the baton from, guitar players and groups from before. It always seems to find a way to become just something that people want, that no matter what the circumstances are, they'll find a way to get in their lives.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so what's going on with you for, I mean, you mentioned kind of the opening show, the album's coming out on the 24th. What are you doing for live shows in the new year as we get closer to the warm months and just in general, any activity going on in your world?
Sure. I haven't confirmed the band on this next show, but I'm going to be playing at another place called, let me double check the date here. Cafe Erzuli, which is a really cool spot um, in Brooklyn. Now, what's the date that I have here? And this is on April 10th. Um, I can't confirm the band yet because
Sure.
I don't know just yet, but
Yeah.
I imagine we'll be playing a lot of music off the record. I play a lot as a side man for different singers, and I play with a singer named Richie Nuz, who's does a lot of like Frank Sinatra kind of music, and then a lot of like pop covers and stuff. And we have a series of residencies in the city. So every Wednesday at the Seville, 7 to 10, I'm there. Fridays at Ventana's from 6 to 9 p.m. and other various events that come up.
So when you do these gigs with these singers and these other established veterans, it has to increase your vernacular and widen and embolden what you're thinking about doing with solo stuff. Do you feel like that happens?
Yeah, 100%. Every singer, every leader has their own style for their set list and their own songs that they like to play and ways that they like to be played. And I think the more people you work with, the wider your palette gets.
Yeah. So small things, January 24th, I would imagine Bandcamp's the best placed or Shifting Paradigm. What's the best way to pick it up?
Yeah, check it out on shiftingparadigmrecords.com.
Okay.
And you can order it on Bandcamp. Um, yeah, please order it on Bandcamp. But if you can't, it's also available on streaming as well.
Okay, cool. Jackson, great to catch up with you, man. Best of luck with the release. Best of luck with this brand new year we're getting into. And I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Joe. Great to talk to you.
Great talking to you.